you have to be okay with offending a small number of people to win over the 80%. No one can be all things to all people.
True.
It's much better to think about what is my target audience and what is the niche audience within that target audience. Try and speak to them directly.
When it comes to creating content people actually want to engage with, today's guest is one of the best in the business. Thomas Finetto is the head of creative and social marketing at Meta, where he leads the creative direction for accounts that have amassed an audience of over 20 million followers. Officially, that's his job. Unofficially, he might just tell you he's mastered the fine art of making memes and funny reels. In this episode, you'll hear insights on what makes content stand out, how to build loyalty on platforms that move fast, and how the best brands find the balance between consistency and experimentation. If you want practical, real-world advice from someone who's actually done it, you're in the right place. When we're talking about content, when for you did it really click that actually content isn't necessarily just marketing? It's actually a way that obviously you can build trust and an audience and a brand, right?
For me, it was, I think my first experience was, I was at uni, I was in a band, as we all are, and we released a couple of singles and we didn't expect a lot from it. We were doing it as a hobby, but then we decided, okay, this next one we're really going to take seriously. We're going to create a whole visual identity, a whole vibe. We're going to create a music video. We're going to do like behind the scenes. We're going to do all of these like side pieces of content. We really were thinking, let's create like a whole network, like spider web of content that all maps back to the song, which is ironically like 20 years later, I'm aging myself there, how everyone does it. But at the time, we really put almost more effort into the marketing materials and the content more than the actual music. We got a lucky break because we at the time, I don't know if you remember, Vimeo had Vimeo staff picks.
Yeah.
So we shot
Grail.
the holy grail of like, for any video editor,
Yeah.
I was like, that's what you want, or any video maker. We got a Vimeo staff pick with that music video. We had this beautiful like website. We had all of this. We were using like Instagram had just like launched at the time, or it was starting to become a thing. And we were really leaning into that. And we played a showcase in London and we literally had all of the major labels there. And just that it really clicked. That was like night and day. You're fighting for all of this attention in such a saturated market, to all of a sudden you're standing out and people are coming to you.
Was it a conscious decision in the way that you were doing that? Because were you just trying stuff? Were you just experimenting and seeing what was going to work? Or was it a case of, right, we got to do something different to stand out here? This is what we got to commit to.
It was a little bit of both. I think I'm lucky that I really enjoyed making the music video and the marketing more than I loved making the music. So that was good for me, because I was like, oh, maybe my career isn't just being the musician. And eventually we've got signed to Sony Music, and after 2 years of doing the full-time musician thing, I transitioned and started working for Sony Music, and that's what got me on this path of marketing and content and branding. But then I started to really look into it, and I don't know if you've looked into the like anthropology of like branding and storytelling. Human beings have very terrible memory. We are not good at remembering things. So our brains developed this kind of shortcut where we, certain colors of flowers or mushrooms we don't eat. If we see a certain color animal with certain stripes, we're like naturally afraid of it. So we developed this, as human beings, developed this ability to like recognize things very quickly. And that translated basically all the way down the line to modern times, when the first like cattle owners started branding their cows to differentiate it. Mostly is like, these are our cows, don't touch them. But then it became like, this cow has that brand on it, and that means that cow has added value now. So that's really where the term branding came from.
How do you find leading creative and social marketing at such a, quite honestly, massive scale? You're putting out content on Meta for Business, Instagram for Business. Is there pressure involved in that? How do you feel doing that?
There's a lot of pressure, and we definitely want to get it right. We have a lot of eyes on us. We run the biggest B2B social accounts in the world, and Meta has some of the biggest social accounts in the world and is also the social platform. I often like to say I have the most meta job at Meta because I am trying to get businesses to advertise on a platform through that platform.
Yeah.
There's over 200 million businesses that use a Meta product every month to grow, find customers, whatever their goal is. And there really is no one size fits all. So it's difficult on one hand, and there's a lot of pressure, but on the other hand, we're very lucky because we have this huge community of 200 million people around the world. One of my favorite things that we do on the social channels is find like UGC content, or I guess BC business generated content that we can repost, because it's just celebrating the community, but then also showing examples of how people have found success.
Proof in the pudding as well, right? Because you're putting out all these tips to say, hey, give this a go. And when you see it working firsthand, how great.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually say how big those channels have grown to now. You're leading, when we talk about an enormous scale of the accounts you're running, what have they grown from and what are they now since you've been kind of leading this?
If you combine all of just the B2B channels, we're over 40 million.
Wow.
followers.
8 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that people need to start focusing more on reach and views, like monthly views.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going into a world where people are maybe less likely to follow you, but you're more likely to get a lot of reach if the content is good. So follow accounts aren't as important. Like there are lots of accounts that maybe have less followers at Meta, but get more reach. And ultimately what you want is more reach, more customers. So
More eyes on what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's true, actually, because when you think about how people engage the platform now as well, often they're probably primarily swiping through, they're scrolling through Reels, right, as well. And I guess habits have changed, whereby you would maybe initially engage the platform more so with the feed and like looking at posts, but that's still obviously a thing, but it's secondary. Right now, if you're scrolling through, you've got to find that content that's going to like stop you scrolling. You might not necessarily go and follow that page, but you're liking it, you're sharing it. I'm assuming not to kind of be like, what's the secret to the algorithm? But I'm guessing that's what's working, right? If people are sharing, the platform knows that this is good content.
Someone at Meta once said this, I won't claim it for myself, but I think it's really good. I think just if you're worried about the algorithm, just replace the word algorithm with the word human or person. Because ultimately the algorithm is trying to figure out what human beings want.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about the algorithm. Focus on the human being at the end of that equation. And if you are optimizing for that human being, you are way more likely to get the reach and engagement you want, because the algorithm will get the signals that that person is liking what they're seeing, and then you'll get that distribution. A lot of people really focus too much on like, what does the algorithm want, and not enough time on what does the human being want.
This is, I'm sure, a question you get asked all the time. But for you right now, what would you say for anyone listening who's just maybe struggling to get that traction? What is the number one thing they should be considering to do to try and grow their account and actually get the results that they want for their business?
I hate, it's a bit of a cop out, but the answer is there is no one answer for everyone. It depends on what your objectives are, how many resources you have. The answer could range from you should be, promoting content so that you're reaching your target audience, or the answer should be you should be posting organically more frequently to, reach your target audience at scale. So it really changes. Instagram coaches or social media coaches or marketing coaches online really love giving the flashy answers. Like, this is the one thing that's going to fix everything. This is the one thing you do. And there's like a lot of great answers you can give for this, but there isn't like one silver bullet. I will say, like, if you're like a medium-sized business, you're kind of, you've been doing social for a while, it's not really growing. I think a lot of people are in that situation. Some of the advice that I always give is be more entertaining is the number one thing. A lot of people think of social media as like another surface to post my TV ad, or another surface like we just made like a print ad, might as well post that to our feed, whatever, we'll get some likes. And the competition on social media is so fierce right now, not just with other brands. You are literally competing against everything and everyone that is taking up anyone's attention. So if you post something on the Film Farmers Instagram, it will appear between, a really engaging reel by a creator and like someone's best friend's wedding pictures or their kid, like their child's pictures or something, that's like very close to their heart. Why would they stop on your post?
True.
Like you got to understand the context of where the content is appearing and also what is the frame of mind of the person. And the data says it. Like every year they do research, different like publications or like marketing groups do this, but the number one reason come to social media is to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So entertain.
Yeah.
Like what does that mean for you? A lot of I love like comedy. I love memes. So I always say if you're a brand that can do more like funny content or relatable content, that will get you more engagement and shares. And then the algorithm gets the signals and then you get more distribution, you reach more people and so on and so forth. But if that's not your brand, then maybe you just do more like deep emotional storytelling. You get your clients or your customers to give testimonials. There are plenty of ways to do it, but entertaining. You need to start entertaining on social media.
Yeah, because you don't want to have just like ads or promos about you, for
Yeah.
example, all the time, because people switch off to it, right? They don't want that. They want to see stuff that's fun that they can share and they can share with their friends. I think another thing as well that you kind of touched on there was, and something that still happens today, especially like video production, is often maybe we'll get an inquiry which is like, right, we want to do this film and a couple of social cuts. And actually, I think that's maybe the wrong way to think about it, right? That was maybe the way things were a few years ago, but actually social needs to be more considered now, I think more so than ever, because you can repurpose content to an extent.
Yeah.
But actually you need to be thinking about shooting and planning content specifically for that platform, because otherwise you're missing an opportunity because it's not going to be optimized. You're not going to get those same sort of results that you could do otherwise.
I always say like, if you're just going to post product pictures, fine. Like if you don't have a social team, it's just you. That's all you can manage. Do it consistently. There's like, I think there are small ways, like instead of just posting a picture, try to actually show how you would use your own product. And then it makes it a little bit more native to the platform. It's like a reel, so it appears in the reels tab.
Yeah.
A lot of people use reels, so that will give it a little bit more distribution and more people will see it. If a post does particularly well, boost that to more people.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be totally fine. You can do that if that's what works. Uh, if you have a little bit more time, a little bit more money, then I would say like try and hire the right type of people. Don't give social media to like your marketing team who've never run social before. There are so many amazing young people that really understand social. They get the culture, the way it's done. They understand the value of it. You can hire someone out of university or college, and they can come in and just give them, say, like, for a month. Let's see what happens. Post a couple times a day, follow trends, follow memes. Let's see what happens, and if it works, I've seen a lot of examples of brands do that, and it's worked out really well for them.
Interesting. Anyone in particular that comes to mind now you think that's doing something like doing that really well?
There's a realtor in America who hired like a Gen Z editor, and he used to do a lot of social media, but it was like the old school, hey, I'm going to do a tour of the house. This is the kitchen. This is the living room. Look at the beautiful marble. He gave her a little bit more freedom. And we interviewed him about this on Instagram for Business. And he said, I actually didn't know she was going to post it, but she basically took one of these house tours and then cut out everything he said and just posted a montage of him breathing, going, for 30 seconds and said like house view, but make it Gen Z, something like that.
Okay.
And it blew up. He got 80 million views.
Oh my God.
And all of a sudden now, there are all of these realtors in America who are trying to copy the same style. Like, oh, we can make fun content. It was almost like one person had to do it and to give everyone else permission. And that's also a big thing that I say is don't look at your competitors, Because if you do a competitor analysis and you copy your competitors, the best you could hope for is coming in second, a close second. If you do a platform analysis and you look at what is the best content, what are the best accounts on this platform, look at the highest performing reels or whatever, look at your version of that. Like, how can I take what that is and bring it into my niche? And all of a sudden, you're doing something no one else in your vertical or industry is doing. And then you have a huge advantage, and everyone else will end up doing competitor analysis on you.
Some people watching will think, I'm scared to do that. There is that fear factor for brands who are afraid to maybe go outside of the box and try something new. They want to just kind of stick to what they know. And I guess that's okay in some regards. You'll kind of get those perhaps same results you're going, but
Yeah.
I think that maybe prevents you from going to that next level that's there. What would you say to people who are maybe afraid of experimenting on the platform or trying something new? Maybe they post something and it gets, I don't know, no likes or no shares, or whatever. Does that matter?
I mean, nothing lost, nothing gained. You're in that position. That's why I mean, this is where like the algorithm maybe works in your favor. If the content isn't resonating with people at scale, you won't get the distribution, and not many people see it. If it's good content, the algorithm will pick it up. It'll get the right signals, and it will distribute it to more people. So I really, and I also think like social media things move so fast.
Mm.
People always compare social media to like a TV ad where it's like it's so public and so many people see it, and I'm scared of doing anything wrong. And don't get me wrong, like there is brand risk to pushing, but I mean Mark Zuckerberg said it best, like the biggest risk is not taking any risks because you end up just slowly losing value. Your brand gets eroded. You're not doing anything new. You're not giving anyone, and everyone else is moving ahead of you. So you do need to take risks. That is just part and parcel of, I guess, operating in this world. You can't go through life without taking a risk. But don't be stupid. There are like reputational hazards that you cannot come back from. I recently spoke to the head of social at Clinique, the cosmetics pharmaceutical company, and obviously they do a lot of content which has like medical studies quoted in them.
Yeah.
Don't screw around with that.
No.
Like, that is something that you need legal and leadership approval on and oversight. But she said that she made a deal with leadership and legal that like for anything that mentions like a medical study, we will go through the proper approvals and make sure we're buttoned up. For everything else, we're just going to go. We're going to move fast, take risks, and that's the balance. So there's a way of doing it where there's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And moving fast, I guess, really is the name of the game. It's so easy to get left behind now. You'll see trends emerging that are super popular and then suddenly they disappear. So do you think, is it worth brands paying attention to trends? Is some of that just a bit of hype that they don't need to worry about when they pass by? Where do you sit when it comes to trends on social?
I think it's part of the word social. In social media, you need to jump onto what people are talking about, whether it's a trend, a cultural event, a holiday. It works. Like if people are talking about it and you jump in on the action, you get that extra bit of visibility, um, and that all goes into building your brands. Like you're putting money in the brand bank every time you pop up on someone's feed and they comment or engage with your post. I do think like that what's more important than trends is setting up the right teams and processes to be able to do it at scale. I think that's the thing that most people don't understand about social is that it's very different from marketing. It's not, oh, let's make a couple of ads and then let's, put those ads into like ads manager and use them for the next 6 months to see if we can like generate more sales. It's like you need to post 4 times a week, maybe, depending on um, what you can post. I think consistency is the best thing, but some brands are posting 3 or 4 times a day. And they are able to do that because they have the right people and the right processes in place. So that's the thing you have to figure out. I think everyone's focusing downstream on how do I make the content and post it. But really, it's like, what is the system I have to put in place that will enable me to very easily ideate, develop, produce, post content on a daily basis? And we can go into that if you want.
I would love to, yeah, because actually you've led me very nicely to my next question. Is there anything that you think brands or people in charge of, say, marketing for brands need to kind of rethink or let go of, like a certain approach when it comes to their strategy these days, particularly when it comes to social? Is there something that brands are doing on social that holds them back from really taking that next step?
There's a lot of things. This idea of like finding the right putting the right systems in place. I think lots of brands continue to invest in social teams, but then not set them up for success. So don't give them the freedom and the speed that they need or the tools they need to actually ship the type of content that works. Everyone loves Duolingo,
Hmm. Hmm.
and rightly so, because they're hilarious and they have a really great system put in place, which is essentially like there's just a lot of trust that they put
Yeah.
in their social team, and they they tell the social team what's on the table and what's off the table. Like, you should not be talking about these types of topics or making fun of this or doing that, but everything else, go ham, go crazy. And they're just able to move a lot faster. One of my favorite like posts or campaign moments of last year was they the social team was like, let's get 30 employees to go to the Charlie XCX opening like Brat Tour concert
Okay.
with the duo owl mask on. And you got this amazing, completely organic coverage of Charlie XCX looking out at the crowd, and there's like 30 people in green owl masks, and she goes, Duolingo. So it's like to have
Perfect.
one of the biggest pop stars of last year
Yeah.
basically call out your brand name at the opening night of her like record selling album, and they didn't have to pay her for it.
Yeah.
Like that's the power of social. And they were able to put that together in like 48 hours. They had the idea, they bought the tickets. They have like leadership who understands they need to move fast and jump on trends. Not everyone will have that trust, I think, and it needs to be earned. But I've spoken to a couple of people from Duolingo, and they'll say like they made a lot of mistakes along the way, and you've got to learn, and you won't do it again. And Ryanair is another great example. The head of social there, who I know, and you should look up, Michael Corcoran. He basically was told, you can do anything you want, just don't talk about like airplane safety. You've seen how far they've taken it. It was because they were told, do what you want, move fast,
Yeah.
don't get sued, don't talk about airplane safety.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, Ryan. That's a really good example because on social, it feels like actually, it feels like they're a different beast altogether. They could be a different brand because it's almost like they've just gone, I don't care.
Yeah.
And they'll really make light of some of like I don't know, the complaints. Could you say, yeah, the complaints or the things that people say they don't like about the brand, and they're just like, you still use us? And that's a big risk, right? Because that could put off a lot of people, and yet there still must be one of the, I don't know, there must be one of the busiest airlines going, right? So
Yep.
that's a big
And
risk.
you touched on something actually that I often say internally at Meta. You have to be okay with offending a small number of people to win over the 80%. You like, no one can be all things to all people.
True.
So when you're starting out, or if you're struggling, with your social accounts, or you're launching a new brand or product, it's much better to think about what is my target audience and what is the niche audience within that target audience. Try and speak to them directly. It's about knocking over that first domino. If you try and knock over all the dominoes at once, it's really difficult. You basically water down your brand message. I call it the social uncanny valley. It's like brands trying to act cool, but not quite being cool. So you're like, oh, why are you trying to be cool? I'd much rather that you just post product pictures. At least it's honest, and I can skip it.
People see through it, don't they, as well?
Yeah.
We know straight away, especially on social. There's no hiding from it, really. You just
Nope.
know if someone's posted something that you're like, oh, they've just done that because everyone else is doing it. There's following trends, but there's also taking the time to make it your own, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
If you could complete the sentence for me, the future of brand building is what, in your opinion?
Entertainment.
Entertainment.
Yeah. Again, just taking Duolingo as an example again, all advertisers talk about the Super Bowl as this like big attention grabbing moment that happens every year in the US. And everyone spends, millions of dollars on talent, on production, on buying the actual airtime during the Super Bowl. Like it feels like this is like really there's this just huge moment that everyone is watching and waiting to see what brands are going to do. And there was this stat I saw that Duolingo announced the death of their mascot the day after the Super Bowl,
Right.
and they stole something like 86% of all attention from brands at the Super Bowl with with a couple of posts that were made by their employees that cost them nothing to make. And when you compare that with like over $1 billion worth of production,
Yeah.
airtime, talent fees, um, it's insane. I tried to calculate, looking at like different stats online, different insights, but I think Duolingo got something like over like 1.2 billion
Oh my.
organic reach
Really?
with all of their Duo the Owl death content. Whereas, a lot of people from the Super Bowl were getting 50 million reach or likes on their social content, which is incredible, but they spent so much money to get it. And Duolingo earned it organically with very little overhead.
Yeah.
And they did it because they focused on people on social want to be entertained. People want something to talk about. It's not even about social, really. Uh, it's just the medium that it plays out on the most, but it goes back to just being word of mouth. Social, like, really does that at scale. But if you think about even just like a small town in the 1800s, if someone did something different and interesting that people talked about, it would set their brand apart. It got people talking, word of mouth.
Yeah.
And that's what social is at its core.
Yeah, I totally agree. What are your 3 top tips for someone who is looking to grow their brand on a platform like Instagram, for example?
If I had to give like very, very practical tips, obviously I would have to know, what are your goals, how many resources you have, but very quickly, uh, some of the hacks that have worked really well for us running social accounts
Mhm.
are reposting content. Not enough people repost content. I don't know, it's like a pride thing that no one wants to post the same thing twice, but on a good day, you're probably only reaching 5 to 10% of your audience anyway. If something does well, hold it back and then post it again in 3 weeks, in 3 months. And hopefully you get like a folder of like 5 like guaranteed great posts that you can rinse and repeat a couple of times. I always use the analogy of like, what's your favorite TV show
Right now, I would say, oh, man,
of all time?
of all time,
Yeah, looking back, like what's something that you'll watch again and again and again.
I still really love Friends.
There you go. So if you were flicking through TV and then your favorite episode of Friends came on, would you feel offended
No?
or would you watch it?
Yeah, I'd watch it, absolutely, yeah. It's a really good point.
Yeah. And it's tried and tested content, so more people will see it and it will get more distribution to like unconnected reach, which means people that don't follow your account. It will just more people will see it that don't already follow you. They might follow you. It's just a really easy hack and it saves you time. So I always try and get people to think about that one. Uh, then really practical for Instagram is always add music to your carousels. That's really, really practical. But if you add music carousels, they're eligible to appear in the Reels tab, which automatically gets more views because like everyone's watching Reels now or spending more time in that space. So you want your content to appear in as many different spaces within Instagram as possible. So add music to your Reels. And let's see, a final one is there's a great new feature on Instagram called trial reels, where essentially you, just before you're about to post, you can scroll down and there's a toggle that says trial reel, and it will just post it to, it'll show it to unconnected followers. So people that don't follow your account for 24 to 48 hours. And you can essentially A/B test your content. So if you post like 3 variations of the same organic post and then wait 48 hours, whichever one has the most engagement, you can then choose to make that one public, and then it will post it to all of your followers. But you don't have to do so much trial and error. You learn so much faster by testing as you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a marketer's dream. That's amazing to have that built in. Cool.
Yeah. Those are the really, really practical ones that are helping us at the moment.
If I'm launching a brand today, and I'm thinking about my strategy, I'm thinking about Meta, I'm thinking about Instagram, Facebook. I know obviously entertainment is key, but where do you see the platform going personally, as an insider perspective, over the next sort of 5 years, for example? Trends come and go. It feels like entertainment's probably there as a long-term stay, but
Yeah.
do you feel like there's anything that people should be thinking about for the immediate future?
It's a good question. I mean, the technology is moving so fast. We're grappling with like the arrival of AI and Gen AI and how that's going to impact.
Yeah, we barely touched that actually. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, that's happening now. It's happened. But you see, I think within the next 12 months, we'll have these amazing tools that will be accessible to anyone, where you can just basically, write in, what your brand is, a couple of pointers, what your tone of voice is, and you can just connect it to your Instagram and Facebook, and it'll just organically post as much content as you want. And I think people will start to recognize how that creative looks, and they'll start to scroll past it, and there will be things that emerge that will differentiate AI generated content from human generated content. And I think AI is going to be is already a tool that creative people use to move faster or create better things. It's not replacing anyone. It's going to be another amazing tool that we have. I just think anytime there's a new technology, it's cyclical. We're right to be cautious.
Definitely.
We should move slowly, because as we move forwards, technology gets more powerful and it moves faster. So we shouldn't just rush into things. But it's also like it will bring a lot of good. It will change creative trends in ways that I don't think we know yet. But I think people will always value the human touch. People will always want to know a human being has been involved, deeply. It's not just an automated prompt. And I think I can't wait. I can't wait to see what creatives do with AI.
Yeah. Amazing. Thomas, thank you so much for joining me on The Founders Cut.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
If you want to see more of the content that Thomas creates, make sure to follow @Meta for Business, @Instagram for Business, and @WhatsApp for Business. And of course, Thomas himself on @TFTF. See you next time on The Founders Cut, a podcast from The Film Farmers.